Welcome to Language Swap, everyone, a fun way to learn English. We are so excited to have you join us today.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Alex.
And I'm Sally. Today we're covering wanna and gonna, two words everyone hears constantly, but almost nobody gets taught when it's actually okay to use them.
If you've ever wondered whether you can write gonna in an email, or worried you sound too casual saying wanna out loud, this episode is for you.
By the end of today, you'll actually know exactly where these belong and where they'll get you in trouble.
And I have a story about using gonna in the worst possible place. So let's get into it.
The worst possible place? I'm intrigued already.
I once wrote in a formal email to a client, "We're going to finalize the contract by Friday."
Oh no, I already know where this is going.
The client wrote back very politely, but clearly a little thrown off, just confirming will the contract be finalized by Friday, completely ignoring my wording, just quietly fixing it in his reply.
He corrected you without even mentioning it.
And I didn't even notice what had happened until my manager mentioned gently that client emails should probably stick to going to instead of gonna.
That's such a specific kind of quiet correction. Honestly, the professional equivalent of someone silently fixing your typo.
I felt genuinely mortified once I understood what had happened. But it also made me realize I had zero actual understanding of where these words belong.
That's exactly why this episode exists. Then let's start with the basics, what wanna and gonna actually are, grammatically speaking.
I've always just used them by ear, honestly, without thinking about the actual structure underneath.
Wanna is simply want to, said quickly, in casual speech, and gonna is the same thing for going to, specifically the future tense version?
So they're not separate words exactly. They're just casual pronunciations of existing phrases.
Exactly that. They're not slang in the sense of being made-up words. They're just how native speakers naturally compress common phrases in fast, relaxed speech.
I want to go home. I'm going to call her later. Both completely natural in spoken English.
Extremely natural and genuinely used by almost everyone in almost every casual conversation, regardless of education level or background.
So why did my email go so wrong then? If everyone uses these constantly.
Because the key issue isn't whether they're correct, it's about register, the level of formality appropriate for a specific situation.
Give me the actual rule then, since apparently ear alone isn't enough.
Speaking, casual, texting, casual writing to friends, wanna and gonna are completely fine. Formal writing, professional emails, essays, official documents, always use the full versions instead.
So the client email needed the formal version specifically because it was professional writing, not because gonna is wrong in general.
Exactly. Gonna isn't incorrect English, it's just informal English, and informal English in a formal context creates that slightly jarring, unprofessional feeling your client noticed.
That distinction actually makes so much more sense than just memorizing never use gonna, which is honestly what I assumed the rule was before this happened.
A lot of learners assume that, actually, and it creates a different problem. Sounding overly stiff and formal in casual conversations where gonna would sound completely natural.
Wait, so you can actually sound wrong in the other direction too?
Absolutely. If a friend asks what you're doing this weekend and you respond with, "I'm going to visit my parents," it sounds oddly formal, almost robotic for a casual conversation between friends.
I'm gonna visit my parents sounds so much more natural in that exact context.
Completely natural and expected, using the fully formal version in casual speech can actually make you sound less fluent, not more correct.
That's such an important point, honestly, because I think a lot of learners assume formal always equals safer.
It really doesn't in this specific case. Matching the register of the conversation is what actually sounds fluent, not defaulting to formal every single time out of caution.
I want to bring up job interviews specifically, actually, since we covered that whole topic in an earlier episode.
Oh, that's such a good example of the tricky middle ground. Actually, interviews are formal but not stiff. Formal like an email, exactly.
So where does gonna fall in something like that?
Generally safer to avoid wanna and gonna in interviews specifically, since first impressions favor a slightly more polished register, even in spoken English.
So I'm going to bring strong project management skills to this role, instead of I'm gonna bring.
Exactly that choice. Interviews sit closer to the formal end of the spectrum, even though they're spoken, not written.
What about everyday work conversations, though, once you already have the job? Meetings? Casual chats with coworkers?
That depends heavily on your specific workplace culture. Honestly, some offices are very casual and gonna fits naturally in daily conversation. Others stay more formal, even in spoken exchanges.
So there's no single universal rule for the workplace itself.
Not a single universal rule? No. Listening to how your specific colleagues and managers actually talk is usually the best guide for that particular environment.
I want to share a story here too, actually, because I think it shows the opposite mistake. Someone being too formal in a casual setting.
Please tell me, I want to hear the opposite version of my own mistake.
I know someone who studied English very formally for years. Excellent grammar, and when a friend asked, "What are you going to do this weekend?" she responded, "I'm going to attend a family gathering."
That does sound a little stiff for a casual weekend chat between friends.
Her friend actually laughed and said, "Why do you talk like you're being interviewed for a documentary?"
Interviewed for a documentary is such a specific, perfect way to describe overly formal, casual speech.
She told me that comment actually helped her more than any grammar lesson had, because it made the mismatch feel real and immediate instead of abstract.
That's such an important kind of feedback, honestly. Sometimes you need someone to point out that grammatically correct and contextually natural aren't always the exact same thing.
What did she change after that?
She said she started paying much closer attention to how her friends actually spoke, not just how textbooks presented correct English, and slowly started relaxing her speech to match the casual context around her.
That's such a healthy way to adjust. Actually noticing the mismatch and gradually calibrating instead of swinging to the opposite extreme immediately.
Exactly. Neither of you needs to be perfectly formal or perfectly casual all the time. You just need to notice which situation you're actually in.
I want to cover a few more specific contexts, actually, since I think concrete examples will help this settle in properly.
Good idea, texting friends. Gonna and wanna are completely standard, expected, even preferred over the full formal version.
Want to grab dinner later? Totally normal text message between friends.
Completely normal. And honestly, using want to in full in that exact text might come across as slightly cold or overly formal. Oddly enough,
What about writing a caption on social media? Something casual but public.
generally fine to use gonna and wanna there too, since social media captions typically match a relaxed conversational tone even when public.
A cover letter for a job application, though. I feel like that one's obvious after the email disaster. But let's confirm it anyway.
Always the full formal version there. I'm going to bring instead of I'm going to bring every single time, no exceptions.
What about a personal blog post? Something between fully casual and fully professional.
That one genuinely depends on your own writing voice and audience. Some blogs are conversational and casual by design, others maintain more of a professional tone throughout.
So it's really about knowing your specific audience and matching their expectations more than following one fixed rule everywhere.
Exactly that. The actual skill isn't memorizing where gonna belongs, it's developing a sense for formal versus casual context in general, which naturally tells you the answer each time.
I want to bring up pronunciation too, actually, since I think that's a whole separate layer of this entire topic.
Oh, that's such a good addition. Even native speakers vary quite a bit in how clearly they pronounce wanna and gonna depending on speed and formality.
So even within casual speech, there's a spectrum of how relaxed the pronunciation actually gets.
Exactly. In slow, careful, casual speech, you might hear something closer to want to, blending gently. In fast, very relaxed speech, wanna comes out almost as one single quick sound.
Does that mean as a learner, I should practice saying it more relaxed on purpose to sound more natural?
It genuinely helps. Yes, practicing the natural contraction in casual contexts out loud helps you sound less robotic and more like you're speaking, not reading a script internally.
That's honestly one of the more practical tips in today's whole episode. Just practicing saying gonna and wanna out loud in appropriate moments.
It really is practical because so many learners write these words correctly in casual texting, but still say going to and want to fully out loud, even in relaxed conversation, purely out of habit from formal study.
I definitely did that for years, actually. speaking more formally than the actual situation called for, purely because that's what I'd practiced in class.
Which connects back to something we've said in other episodes, too. Honestly, formal study gives you the foundation, but real fluency requires learning the casual layer separately, almost as its own skill.
I think what I'm taking away from this whole episode is that wanna and gonna aren't shortcuts or mistakes. They're actually a completely normal part of natural spoken English that just needs the right context to land correctly.
Exactly that. Knowing when to use them is really just knowing which room of the house you're standing in, formal or casual, and dressing your language appropriately for that specific room.
I want to bring up a few other related contractions too, actually. Since these two words aren't really alone in this category,
Oh, that's such a good point. There's a whole family of these casual contractions that follow the exact same formal versus casual logic.
gotta, forgot to, or have got to is one I use constantly without even thinking about it.
I gotta go versus I have to go. Same relationship exactly as gonna and going to. Casual contraction versus full formal phrase.
Kinda and sorta, for kind of and sort of.
Those follow the same pattern too. I'm kind of tired in casual speech versus I'm somewhat tired or simply I'm tired in more formal writing.
Lemmy, for let me, is one that took me embarrassingly long to even recognize as a real word when I first heard it.
That's such a common experience, actually. Let me know sounds like a completely different word until you slow it down and realize it's just let me compress together.
Dunno, for I don't know, is another one that confused me for a while, purely because of how compressed it sounds.
I don't know, is extremely casual, almost exclusively spoken, and would look quite unusual even in a casual text message, let alone formal writing.
So there's actually a spectrum. Even within casual contractions themselves, some feel more acceptable in writing than others.
Exactly. Gonna and wanna appear in casual texting constantly, but dunno stays almost entirely in spoken conversation, even among close friends.
That's such a subtle distinction. Honestly, one more layer of nuance, beyond just formal versus casual.
It really is. And it's exactly the kind of nuance that comes from listening carefully to real conversations over time, more than from any single rule you could memorize.
I want to share one more story, actually, because it ties several of these contractions together in one specific moment.
Please, go ahead. I'm curious how this one plays out.
A friend of mine was texting a landlord about an apartment viewing and wrote, "Let me know what time works. I don't know my schedule yet, but I'll figure it out."
That sounds like a completely normal, casual text message to
The
me.
landlord, though, responded very formally, almost coldly, and my friend felt like something had gone wrong, though she couldn't identify exactly what.
Did she ever figure out what happened?
A mutual friend later suggested that landlords, especially for a first message about a serious rental agreement, often expect a slightly more polished tone, even in texting.
That's such an interesting middle case, actually, because texting a landlord isn't purely casual, but it's also not a formal email exactly either.
So even within texting, the specific relationship and purpose changes what tone actually fits.
Exactly that. A first message to a landlord about housing probably deserves something a little more polished rather than the fully compressed casual version.
That's such a useful distinction, honestly, since I don't think anyone explicitly teaches texting a landlord as its own specific register, somewhere between friends and formal email.
Nobody really does teach that specifically, which is exactly why real-life mistakes like this one end up teaching it far more effectively than any single class ever could.
I think the actual skill underneath all of this, every casual contraction we've covered, is developing an instinct for who you're talking to and what that relationship actually calls for.
Exactly that instinct. Not a fixed rule for every contraction individually, but a general sense of formality that applies across all of them consistently once you internalize it. All right, let's do our word tour for today.
Let's start with what these words actually are. Wanna is a casual, natural pronunciation of want to in spoken English. Gonna is a casual, natural pronunciation of going to, specifically for future actions.
The wider family of casual contractions that follow the same pattern. Gotta for got to or have got to, equally common in casual speech. Kinda and sorta for kind of and sort of. Lummy for let me, often unrecognized at first by learners. Dunno for, I don't know, staying almost entirely spoken rather than written. Now where they're completely appropriate. Casual conversation with friends and family, spoken naturally without any formality expected. Texting friends where the full formal version might even feel oddly cold or distant. Casual social media captions, matching a relaxed conversational tone.
And where you should avoid them completely. Professional emails, the exact mistake that started today's whole episode. Cover letters and job applications, always using the full formal version. Job interviews specifically, since first impressions favor a slightly more polished register.
The middle ground that depends on context. Everyday workplace conversations, depending heavily on your specific office culture. Personal blog posts, depending on your own writing voice and audience expectations.
And the tricky middle ground of texting someone new, like a landlord. A first message about something serious, like housing, deserves a slightly more polished tone. Your challenge this week: notice one conversation today where gonna or wanna would fit naturally and consciously use it instead of the fully formal version.
And if you've ever accidentally sent a slightly too casual email to a client or sounded like you were being interviewed for a documentary with friends, you're in genuinely excellent company.
Or if you've ever texted a landlord like they were your best friend and gotten a surprisingly formal response back, also excellent company.
Honestly, at this point, we should just accept that everyone learning English, and plenty of native speakers too, has misjudged formality at least once in a text message.
It's genuinely one of the most universal small embarrassments language creates, in any language, not just English specifically.
Which makes it a lot less scary, honestly, once you realize how common it actually is.
If today's episode cleared up something you've been guessing at for years, share it with someone who needs the exact same clarity.
And if you're ever unsure which way to go, formal or casual, a good default is to slightly overshoot toward formal with people you don't know yet, and relax once you understand the relationship better.
That's such practical advice, honestly, better than trying to memorize every single context individually.
It really is simpler that way. You can always loosen up once you know someone better, but it's much harder to walk back an overly casual first impression.
Formal first, relax later. Seems like a genuinely solid rule to close on.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone.
We'll see you in the next episode.